The Sarasota County Bar Association is a proud partner in bringing you Law in Sarasota. With voluntary membership of over 900 lawyers and judges, the Sarasota County Bar Association is your community's leader in advancing legal professionalism, practice development, and public service. Visit www.sarasotabar.com for more information and to use the online directory list to find an attorney.
This program is brought to you by a grant from the Community Foundation of Sarasota County and the Sarasota County Bar Association. The Education Channel produces the program and broadcasts from its state-of-the-art campus on Beneva Road. They make this program possible. Welcome to Law in Sarasota. This program is brought to you by the Sarasota Bar Association and the Community Foundation of Sarasota. Law in Sarasota is produced at the Education Channel's state-of-the-art studio on the campus of Suncoast Technical College. I'm Senior Judge Lee Haworth. On February 14th, 2018, a gunman on the campus of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School opened fire, killing 17 students and staff members. 17 others were wounded. This tragedy put in motion events that have come to impact every student in public and charter schools in Florida. As you will see, as a result of the actions of the 2018 legislature, law enforcement presence was required on all school campuses. Now, there were different approaches taken by the 67 public school districts as to how to best comply with the legislative mandate. In Sarasota County, it resulted in the creation of a separate police force employed by the school district. After a bit of a false start, Captain Timothy Enos, an experienced Sarasota Sheriff's deputy, was recruited to be the school's law enforcement chief of police and executive director of safety and security. He was occupying a position previously filled by 2 officers. He is our guest today, and we will discuss the duties, the challenges he faces, and his plans to secure the safety of our students. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you, Judge.
So, let's talk about your background as a Sarasota Sheriff's deputy, particularly as it relates to the children that you may have seen as students.
Well, I have almost 29 years in law enforcement. Originally started at the Manatee County Sheriff's Office and came down to Sarasota. At the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office for 15 years, I was a lieutenant in charge of the Youth Services Section, which was all of the deputies that were on campuses as school resource officers in Sarasota County. During that time period, the agency became a model for other communities around the country in which we were recognized that by the National Association of School Resource Officers, as well as through DOJ and a few other federal partners that we had. We would have other agencies that would actually come down here and to look at that Sarasota County Youth Services model in order to create their own or in order to do some best practices. Since then, I'm also the executive director of the Florida Association of School Resource Officers. Currently, we have about 800 members within the state of Florida, which include sheriffs, police chiefs, school administrators, and school resource officers, deputies, as well as police officers.
Well, in addition to your official duties as a deputy and school resource officer duties, you also have a personal relationship with our schools. Don't you have kids that went to school here?
Yeah, I am a Riverview High School graduate myself, as well as all 3 of my children. 2 have graduated here through the school district, and my son is currently in 9th grade, and he attends Riverview High School. So I'm also a proud dad of, and also a parent of children in the school district.
Okay. So how long have you been in Sarasota County?
We actually moved down here with my family in 1980 from New Jersey.
Okay. So tell us about what background you've had in security.
Well, like I said, when I originally came onto the sheriff's office in Sarasota, I ended up going into youth services. And when I was in there, I had 4 different elementary schools in which I was a DARE officer, in which I provided all the services to those schools on campuses. And then I went to McIntosh Middle School as the SRO and provided services at the middle school campus as being a school resource officer. And then also, I also filled in at some of the high schools, some of the alternative schools. So I actually have been the SRO on campus as well as then throughout my career, I came back as a supervisor, on which I stayed a majority of my career working in youth services, which was the school resource officer, a deputy program for the county.
So you were actually a captain with the Sheriff's Department when the call came asking you if you would consider being the chief of police. And I think you were sworn in November 27th last year, 2018.
Yes, I was.
So what you been doing lately?
Well, a lot of things have changed. I was captain with Sheriff Knight at the Sheriff's Office, and I was in charge of the Emergency Operations Bureau, which is the 911 call center, working closely with the county, with the EOC. Since I came over, we've been doing a lot of things. You know, one of the things I can tell you is that the officers that were hired that are currently out on our schools are very seasoned, well-rounded, respected individuals. A majority of them are retired from other agencies, and they bring a wealth. We have captains, and we've had sergeants, and we've had investigators, detectives. And a lot of those people, when you talk to them, especially due to the Parkland incident, they feel that even though many of them had retired and come to enjoy Florida, but a lot of them thought that they still had stuff to give back to the community. They felt compelled that they wanted to come in because they could keep kids safe, and they felt like they had a calling in order to do that. And there's a lot of guys that I talked to and ladies that said that after this tragedy that they felt like they had a lot more to give, and they wanted to keep our kids safe.
Well, you're here today with only a few weeks between being sworn in and having to get this thing organized. So you're basically building a department from the ground up.
Well, we are, but there was the previous chief and executive director had started putting in the building blocks to get it going, and using those that have started, especially in the background investigations, the recruiting, the people that they brought in. You know, I've continued to work forward with training, and as an example, on the last training day, I had Ginny Donovan come in, which you're familiar with from DJJ.
Well, she's the circuit chief of the Department of Juvenile Justice.
Yeah. And we did civil citation, because it's not necessarily just being the officer on campus for the active shooter, but we still have to provide service to the families and to the students as part of that. Being part of the civil citation gives kids an opportunity.
So civil citation is a way of actually diverting children out of the juvenile system, giving them a chance to prove they're not a serious offender, and keeping their records relatively clean, which is a noble project. So tell me about recruitment. What are you doing about recruitment now? Do you have all the positions filled?
Well, currently we do have the positions that we were authorized for this school year are filled. But coming into next year, as we continue to work with the Sheriff's Office and the other municipalities, we are looking to assist them in how their manpower is going to look for next year, also to determine what our manpower is going to look. So we are actively recruiting law enforcement officers that are Florida State certified, or somebody that may have come to Florida as some of these others that have a wealth of information and experience that are going to be able to go to EOT, which is Experienced Officer Training, in order to be certified in the state of Florida. So we have positions that are available. We're actively recruiting. We want people, you know, number one, we need to have people that can talk to kids, that they can build that relationship of trust. And we need people that dealing with children and being a school resource officer is different than other aspects of law enforcement. So we want people that kind of have that calling, that they still want to work with kids, they want to protect kids, they want to protect the staff, the families, that they're driven in that nature. So we're recruiting people as we speak.
We may have some people viewing this program who might be interested in serving in that capacity. Tell us about what background checks you do for the people that you do recruit.
Well, one of the things we're looking for, because you have to be a sworn law enforcement officer in the state of Florida, is if they go to the human resources for Sarasota County Schools, they can fill out an application, and the first thing that they're going to look for is they're going to see are they a Florida certified? Because in order to be a law enforcement officer, as we are a law enforcement officer, just as in a sheriff's deputy is a law enforcement officer, or the city of Sarasota, North Port or Venice, they have police officers. Our jurisdiction just happens to be the campuses that the school board has in Sarasota County. So we are full-fledged law enforcement officers. So one of the things that the minimum requirement is you have to be able to obtain or have your FDLE Florida certificate to be a sworn law enforcement officer. So they would have to fit that. Even though we have a lot of people that would be interested, you still have to be a sworn law enforcement officer. We are at this point aren't sending people to go through like the Criminal Justice Academy on doing any sponsorships, which could come open in the future as the agency and department continues to grow. But at this time, we're looking for people who either are sworn or have the ability to be sworn, as in they've retired from up north and they're still within the guidelines that they can get their Florida certification.
In addition to that, do you do full background checks?
Full background checks as we do a polygraph. We also do a psychological profile. We also do a drug screening. We also check your references. We also do your contact your employer. We try to get your last 3 evaluations. We check your financial records. I mean, we do a full, thorough background as we would do for any other officer at any other agency in the county.
Do you plan on having different ranks for the officers when you get established?
And as we're going and we're moving forward, we will, right now, currently we have 3 sergeant positions. Moving forward, we'll be adding some additional sergeants and some command staff as lieutenant spots as we go, because as we continue to grow at the bottom level, we have to make sure that we have the adequate supervision as we grow to the top. But we also want to make sure that it's within the guidelines of a sergeant or a supervisor, so that they're not have too many people that they can't provide that adequate leadership.
I would expect that firearms training is an essential part of this. Tell me what they have to do in that respect.
Well, we have to be certified, and you have to qualify through the FDLE qualification course in order to have a handgun. We also, when you come in to be a sworn officer, you also have to qualify as part of, we can't have somebody be a police officer that's not qualified to carry a firearm. So they would have the state firearm qualification course that we would give them, and they would have to pass it as part of their conditional employment.
So what would you expect a typical officer for the school board to be carrying on the utility belt when they're on campus?
Well, currently we're going to have your firearm, you're going to have your handcuffs, you're going to have your police radio, and then we also have an OC spray, which is, people will call it pepper spray. We have that, magazines. Currently, moving into the future, we're looking at other devices, post-secondary weapons that we'd be able to have, again, and for protection of the students as well as the officer and the other family. So we'd be looking, as an example, as getting a taser.
So when you're talking to these officers and you're starting your training, what's the mission?
Well, the mission is easy. It's always going to be the same. It was the same when I was in. There's the same with the SROs and the SRDs that are working now. The number one is the protection of the staff and the students, period. They are that first line of defense. They're the ones that are going to be the watchdog. They have to be out at the front, and they have to make sure that they should have the mentality that nobody is going to hurt our kids, and that a lot of these ladies and men who are school resource officers and school resource deputies, that's their mentality, is that they're all my kids, whether there's 600 or there's 2,700, is that you're not coming there to hurt the kids, and that they're that gatekeeper, they're that watchdog that's out there making sure that if bad is coming, that they're going to meet it.
What direction do you give them in regards to interaction with the students themselves?
Well, I think that is really, when you start talking about what is a school resource officer, is the way that you prevent crime, is that see something, say something, is that building trust, is that I have to develop a relationship with the students on my campus so that they feel comfortable at any time coming forward and telling us that something is going to happen. It could be anything from stuff in their personal life to stuff on social media, to investigations that may be ongoing that they may have information about, but really it's about developing trust. Is we have to be able to have that trust with the student, have that trust with those families, have that trust with the administrators and the teachers and the staff, and that's including bus drivers, custodians, the people in the lunchroom, all of the facilities, the guys on the air conditioning, that anybody is able to come and know that anything that they bring to us is that we're going to investigate it, we're going to take it serious, because that is the backbone, that is the foundation of what the program is having that trust to be able to stop crime, preventing bad things from happening on your campus.
You used a phrase that I've heard before, see something, say something. What is that initiative?
Well, what we do know is that in most terrible incidents that happen on campus, like in regard to school shooting, is that somebody knew that it was going to happen and that someone didn't report it. So that see something, say something is if you see something on social media, is that we want you to come forward and we want you to tell a trusted adult, whether it's your parent, whether it's a teacher, whether it's the school resource officer, we want you to come forward. And we want you to do that. We work with Fortify FL, which is the app that Department of Education, FDLE has for anonymous reporting at a state level. But we want you to come no matter what the avenue is. We want you to come forward and to say something. So if I see somebody who is in some type of crisis on social media, post something on Snapchat, we want you to tell your parent, tell your SRO, tell your teacher, so that we can help them. It may not just be a threat against violence of other students. It may be that you're in crisis and that you're calling out and you're looking for help. So that's a very important piece that's been around. And again, that starts with building trust.
So you will eventually have a sworn officer in each of the schools?
Yes, sir.
And that includes elementary. How about charter schools?
Well, we'd be elementary, middle, and high schools. And the charter schools at this time, I know that they are with the different municipalities and the sheriff, that they're receiving some officers on campus through them. Currently at this point is any of the training that we do, like we've done the district-wide lockdowns. The first one we ever did was on December 14th. Everybody in the district locked at the same time lockdown. So we wanted to make sure that training-wise, as we move forward, that everybody receives the same training. So,
But charter schools they're not exactly under your
they're not,
wheelhouse,
but they're but as I've offered is, we want them to participate because they have kids there and there are kids as well as anybody else. But ultimately, as we come to school resource officers or deputies or school police officers currently at this time, that we're not staffing them.
So let's talk about the precautions that are made inside the walls of the school. What things have been done to enhance the security in that fashion?
Well, we have an automated system that we're looking through that goes through the announcements that's basically in regard to a lockdown, which also includes external speakers. It includes flashing lights to let people, if you're out in the hallways or on campus, that there is going to be a lockdown, that there's a rolling message that tells you that there's a lockdown. We make sure that all of our doors are locked at all times. We want to make sure that the windows in the doors, that's covered, that glass, because we know that from previous instances of shooters on campus as they look through the window to see if there's anybody in the classroom. So we've designated safe corners. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas called them hard corners, but we've said it's going to be a safe corner because where you go to that, you should be out of the line side of the door so you'll be safe. So we've started a lot of different programs on the internally within the schools. Again, going to clear text instead of a code. We've gone to a lockdown instead of a limited lockdown. Instead of a code red, we've gone to lockdown. So we've also enacted some plain text languages. So no matter who you are on your campus, because if you're a parent on campus and something happens, we also want you to be safe and want you to be secure so that when you hear that, you know that you should get into the nearest classroom and be secure like everyone else.
Well, I know when people come to the campuses, it's somewhat surprising if you haven't been on a school campus recently. You have to go through security. There's usually only one or two entrances into the school. You have to go to the office. They will check your driver's license, give you a little sticker to put on showing that you're a visitor. And if you walk down a hall, the doors are locked to the classrooms. That's part of the procedure, is that right?
Absolutely. So the other thing they've been working on for numbers of years is one single point of entrance. So all of our schools will have one single point of entrance, and when you go into the area of the office, you are going to go through the Raptor system and present your ID. That's going to be scanned so that you receive a name badge that you need to wear. And part of that is if I am on campus and I'm walking, the faculty should know that in order to go through the appropriate processes, you should be wearing that badge, that sticker. So they're going to present it, they're going to do that, they're then going to be allowed or get buzzed into the campus where they're to go. And again, the doors are locked. We want the windows covered, and we want to make it as secure as possible.
And so tell me about what the workday would be like. What time do the officers start? When do they stop?
We're there 30 minutes before, sometimes earlier than that, depending upon what's going on campus, depending upon the climate of the campus. So, we're always going to be there before school starts, and we're always going to stay until after school ends, because we need to make sure that it's just not within a specific period of safety. That safety starts from when that child leaves the house till he gets to school, and from when the child leaves school and gets back to his house, so that we are fully integrated in that safety program of that kid from door to door.
So there's a football game in Tampa, or there's an off-campus event, a field trip or something like that. What would your duties be in that respect?
Well, we could go along with the team. As a law enforcement officer, we'd be able to go there in order to help, just like other teams have right now. If you're watching the college, you see that they all have some type of law enforcement with the head coach. If you're at Florida State, You're going to have the Florida Highway Patrol goes with you. So we would act in that same capacity, is that we would keep our kids safe as they travel, and we would accompany them as requested.
Sarasota County has decided to use the approach of having their own police department. What are the other counties doing? Do you happen to have any idea how they're handling it?
Yeah, some of the counties are going to starting their own school police departments. I have been contacted by a couple of them that have actually asked. I know there's quite a few that I just saw recently. I believe Clay County, I know Alachua County, and some other ones have decided to do school safety officers, such as Manatee County. And some have guardians and school safety officers, or guardians and school resource officer, police officers. So there's kind of a mix.
What's the difference between a guardian and a police officer?
Well, a police officer has full arrest powers, and a guardian or a school safety officer are there to protect the kids.
What's your plan during summer recess?
We, as a school police department, we will be at all of the summer schools that are going to occur in Sarasota County.
Let's talk a little bit about the cost. You obviously have to have a budget. You've got to buy things, radios, handcuffs, all sorts of equipment for uniforms and badges. How does that compare to other agencies as far as the expense goes to the taxpayers?
Well, ultimately, any time that you begin a brand new agency, is that at the front end is you have expenses, such as you said, you're going to have to buy gun belts, you have to buy uniform shirts, you have to buy pants, you have to buy a jacket because it does get cold, you have to buy a long sleeve shirt, you have to buy a dress uniform, a hat, collar brass, there's badges, patches, because you're developing your own stuff. So in the beginning at the cost setup is that there's some costs that are associated with starting on anything. The outlay at the very beginning has to incorporate outfitting an officer and outfitting an agency and making sure that you have a record management system, making sure that there's things that you're no different than any other law enforcement agency in the county. So when it comes to that, and then of course there's the personnel costs, and currently that's the last couple of days, that's what we've been doing, is working with the school district and budgeting and finance in order to make sure that we're appropriately looking for next year, for the next school year and finishing this school year, and what's the needs in order to be able to meet the expectations of what the public is as it relates to being a school police officer.
Well, it's not just police officers. Don't you need administrative support?
Well, we do, but in regard to that, we have one administrative assistant and a secretary right now.
That's it?
For the school police department, yes.
Okay. So how about assistance for you? Do you have folks that are able to help you in the department now that are?
Yeah, and I use the sergeants, and one of the things that helps me a lot is the relationships that I have with all the municipalities and the sheriff. One of the things when I came over, and again, you were at my badge pinning and swearing in, is that I talked a lot about is having those working relationships, because it's not just going to be the school police department that's going to keep kids safe, is that you have to look at all of your partners. It's going to be the support of the sheriff to be able to provide services and guidance, as well as the working with the Sarasota Police Department, the Venice Police Department, the Northport Police Department, Longboat Key Police Department, New College Police Department, with the chief at Sarasota Memorial Hospital. It's going to take all of everybody to come together to keep kids safe, because most of everybody has kids who either been through the education system here or have kids still in the system. So they want this to be successful, and in order to be successful, I have to have all of those relationships and continue with them.
Are you hopeful that once the startup costs have been paid, that as time goes on, the cost will be comparative to what's happening in the other agencies, or less expensive or more expensive?
Well, it appears that from talking and budgeting wise, I'd want to wait till the numbers are crunched, but ultimately that we should be a less expensive alternative to what is currently going on contractually.
One of the less popular functions, I guess, would be preparing all the paperwork you need to go with this. You've got regulations, handbooks, guides, general orders. Are you engaged in all that?
Yes, and we still are currently in developing policy, procedure, protocols, and the guidelines. I've, again, rely on our agency partners a lot with the sheriff, which is where I did almost 26 years. as a law enforcement officer and also as a captain, is to be able to use their policy procedures and use some of their guidance in order to develop our own for the police department.
Okay, well, anything you want to tell the parents before we wind this down that you think they need to know?
Well, what they should know is that you have a very well-trained, good police department here at the Sarasota County Schools Police Department, and that we're going to continue to do everything that we can in order to keep kids safe. We're going to continue to use the development and the partnerships that we have with all the local municipalities, the support of individuals, like yourself, and everything that we can do, because, one of the things that we want to make sure is that we do everything possible so that at night we know that we've done everything possible to keep kids safe in this community.
Thank you for that. Well, folks, there are fewer jobs in law enforcement more vital than protecting the public from the dangers presented by homicidal or deranged persons. And we owe a special duty to keep children out of harm's way. No security system is foolproof. All that law enforcement can do is to be alert, highly trained, and trust that their presence will be discouraging to malefactors. And in an emergency situation, that they are courageous and available at the right time and at the right place to intervene. Chief Enos has set high standards, doing what he and other officers can do to make school days safe. But he stresses his officers can't do it alone. School security depends in large part on students themselves being brave enough to share their knowledge of potential threats. See something, say something. Without peer assistance, chances of interrupting a planned attack may be reduced. It's an enormous responsibility, and I'm sure Tim will have many sleepless nights thinking about new ways to improve school security. Tim, thank you for taking this job. I'm sure all of us are praying that your efforts will be effective.
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate it.
All right. This is Lee Haworth signing off for Law in Sarasota.
For more than 36 years, the Community Foundation of Sarasota County has worked one-on-one with estate planning attorneys and their clients to make a lasting impact through philanthropy. Stable, trusted, and knowledgeable, the Community Foundation safeguards the charitable legacies of donors to ensure that they continue for years to come. Visit www.cfsarasota.org or call 955-3000 for more information.